Okay, let's start coding our first factory example. As you see here, the idea is to create a factory object using, in this case, the new operator in Java. You can create a new factory object from the first factory class. You pass the first factory class's constructor the type of object you want to create, which is Oracle in this case. So we're configuring the first factory's object to work with create Oracle connections, storing that factory object in a variable named factory. Then you can, as you see here, you can create connections using the factory object's create connection method like this. So you say factory.create connection. Since the factory object has been configured to create Oracle objects, it will create an Oracle object, Oracle connection, and that will be stored in this connection object like this. So that's the idea. You can declare a factory object, create it this way, configure it to create Oracle objects, and then use the factory object's create connection method to create the actual Oracle connection object, as you see here. And that's the idea. You can work with factory objects in your core code, and the actual volatile code will stay inside the factory object, not inside your core code. So let's start working and creating this first factory object and first factory class. Now, starting with its constructor, you pass to the constructor the type of connection you want to create. That type is stored internally in a variable named type in this case for future reference. So when you create a first factory object, you pass the constructor the type of the object, connections objects you want to create. That's stored in the internal type variable like that. Then, after you've configured the factory object with the type of connection you want to create, you use the factory object's create connection method to actually create the connection objects themselves. And for example, if type equals, when you call create connection, the type object, the type internal variable is checked to see what type of object the factory should be creating. And if type equals Oracle, then you return a new Oracle connection. This is the Oracle connection class, which we have yet to create. And the idea is that you return from the create connection method a new Oracle connection object if the type that you're supposed to be creating is Oracle. If the type equals, for example, SQL Server, then you create a new SQL Server connection object and return that. We have yet to create the SQL Server connection class. We'll do that in just a moment. Otherwise, you return the default MySQL connection like this, and it creates a new MySQL connection object. And again, we have yet to create the MySQL connection class, but it will use the new operator to create a new object of that class, and it will return that object from the create connection method of the first factory class. So that, in essence, is how you work with factories in a very simplified fashion. Now it's time to create the actual connection classes in order to get this example working. I'm going to create a class called connection. As you see here, it's going to have a default constructor like this, and it's going to have a description method so you can tell what kind of connection it is. In this case, we're just going to return a string named generic, a string of the text generic from the connection class as it stands. And we're going to derive various classes from that connection class. This is the Oracle connection class. This extends the connection class. So it has a constructor, and its description will return the word Oracle instead of just this generic. So it overrides the connection class's description method, so that it will no longer return generic, but instead will return the word Oracle. Similarly, the SQL Server connection class extends the connection class, and its description will return the word SQL Server. The MySQL connection class also extends the connection class, and its description method will return the word MySQL. So again, let's go through the fundamentals here. You create a factory object and configure it for the type of connection it's intended to create, and you use the create connection method in order to actually create the connections that you're going to be working with. And as you saw here, this first factory is going to be configured with a type. A type will be stored, and then when you call the create connection method, the internal type that's already been stored determines what kind of connection you're going to get back. So if type equals Oracle, then this line will return a new Oracle connection object created from our Oracle connection class. This will return a SQL Server connection object, and so forth. This will return a MySQL connection object. So that concludes the construction of our factory. We've constructed our factory and the connection objects, connection classes we're going to use. So let's now put it all together and see whether or not it works in a test framework.